All right, I think that looks good. Okay, that should be good. Where did I put my thing? Okay. I have it. Sorry, I am looking for my water spray bottle, which I just had somewhere. Literally just had it. Ugh. Okay, I found it. All right, sorry about that. Okay. So, let's see. I will try to... All right, hi guys, sorry. I try to be prepared, but it's literally impossible. So I am doing a custom right now for a Moroccan sunset finish that I did last fall for a client, and she, a different client saw it and wanted me to recreate it for her with a similar piece. So this is a tall dresser, and it's similar in shape to the other one I did, but of course it doesn't have the appliques that the other one originally came with. So I had to add a lot of details to it because she wanted it detailed like that one. So I just added a bunch of molds made out of resin to the surface to try to give it a more ornate look as well. So that way when I paint it with metallics, it's going to really pop, especially once I highlight it with some of the waxes like I did last time. I painted this a base of red. It's called Barn Red milk paint. So I painted the base with metallics. It's best to paint the base colors similar to the colors you will be using, because it really enhances the color, and it also you use less layers that way too. So you're not adding a bunch of layers on top, which gives you more brush strokes. So it's best to just paint the base first with chalk paint or milk paint. I kind of prefer milk paint because it's smoother, but it's totally up to you. And I painted this red, as you can see, because the colors that I'm using are going to be like really warm tones. So I'm using copper, ruby red, or actually it's called Sashay Red. So I'm using really warm tones. So I wanted something with a warm tone, you know. And there's the pink, which exploded, as you can see, but I'm using a little bit of pink too. And there's gold. This is called rich gold, so I'm using gold. And then I also have the burnt orange, which I used a lot of on the other one. I really love this orange. I'm not an orange person, but this orange is just so it's just so pretty. I don't know how to say it. It's like, it doesn't remind you of a pumpkin, and I just love this orange. So, and then I have this Tequila Gold, which is a deeper gold. This one is more of a darker gold. I pretty much have every shade of gold you can imagine, and gold comes in a lot of shades, so it's pretty surprising. But Modern Masters carries the largest line of metallic paints. They pretty much have every shade of color. They have green, they have blue, red, orange, purple, so pretty much every single color so it just makes painting furniture with metallics a lot of fun for me, because I like using colors, and I like kind of mixing it up, you know, because that's just what's fun about painting. I also have oops, okay, sorry, I have to shake up this copper because it's right. So I also have copper as well, which I probably should have stirred. Let's see if this will work. So a bunch of colors were blended to create the look of the other dresser, to give it that like sunset-y looking sunset look. The molds are made out of resin. I don't know if I mentioned that, so I used fast cast resin for the molds, and all of these are Redesign with Prima molds that I use too. Redesign has a lot of molds. Like they have so many molds. You can like mix and match them to easily create your own designs. So okay, so I'm going to start with the legs. Just move this guy up forward. So with the other one, I did copper on the bottom, and then I did some orange in the middle. I'm looking at the picture right now. And then I think I did red and a little bit of gold in the middle. It's hard for me to remember, but something like that. I went from deeper colors to lighter ones on top with the gold and a little bit of like pink. So that's pretty much what I'll be doing. So, okay, I try to not spill any paint today. Okay, so, all right, I'm really excited to show you guys how I blend with metallics. Haven't really had a chance to do it, and this is going to be a lot of fun. So I use Klingon brushes. There are a lot of great brush companies out there, like Stillmeister and a lot of other great brands, but I just use Klingons just because they have a lot of sizes. Like I really like this short handle one. It doesn't hurt my wrists as much when I'm blending, but they also have like the flat edge, and then they have the rounder ones. And I always use wet brushes. I never use dry brushes because I find damp brushes help do a smoother finish, especially with chalk paint. So I'm going to start with the copper on the bottom because that is what I did. So smooth this copper. And you can't really see it right now because I'm going to have to kind of layer more. The more layers I put on, the more you'll be able to see it. But with the metallics, it's just very hard to get them super opaque, so you just have to kind of be patient and do some layering. It's not like chalk paint, so it's not thick, and it takes a while. So you can see when I apply it on thicker, you can see it more, but that's going to create more brush strokes. So if you don't mind that, but you just have to keep kind of layering it on, and then I just pretty much put it all over. Just painting these molds too, because with the original I painted the molds on the surface as well, so that the molds also had the same color as the body. These paints are kind of like an acrylic base, so they actually dry pretty quickly, especially with thin layers. It dries really quickly. I'm just gonna add more on. I try to go in one direction with the paint so that it looks smoother. I try not to go in a whole bunch of different directions, just like one smooth direction in the same way, so it looks smoother. Copper. And this copper is kind of a warmer copper too than some of the other ones that I've used before. It's a warmer tone. Right, so I'm going to paint this whole bottom drawer with the copper first. Layer. Molds on here. It is more difficult to blend with molds on, which is why sometimes I do the blending first and then I glue the molds on afterwards. It does not affect, like, your molds are not going to drop off. They're really, like, it can't even, you know, as long as your adhesion is good, your molds are good. Like, I can't even pull this off. Like, you know, it's just stuck on there. I'd have to, like, pry it with a paint scraper or something to try to get it off. So as long as your paint adhesion is correct, then your molds will not come off. kind of have to like stab it on there to get it in all the little crevices too. See if it's still wet. Okay. All right, I'm just gonna keep moving up and let the paint dry. If I just continue adding paint on while it's wet, I'm just basically dragging it all over the place, and it's not doing anything. So with metallic paints, it's just a lot different. You need to make sure you let every single layer dry before you add on another one. Okay, I think I can do some of the orange now. So this is the orange. I'm just gonna shake it up a bit. Do I dip my brush in water? I do. I actually just spray my brushes with water. What color's the base? The base color is a barn red. And yes, I'm using Modern Masters. My brushes I store in water anyways, so they don't really, I don't have to continuously dip them in water. Plus I just like spray if I need to. So I'll spray my brush. Don't spray the surface, because if you spray the surface, you'll get little droplet looking things, and that is not good. So here's the orange. You can see it's like much more opaque. And it's just really pretty, like gold toned orange. So I'm just trying to get my brush strokes on smoothly as I can, so it doesn't look too messy, which is kind of hard around these molds, but I'm gonna spray my brush a bit. Also using thin layers will let it dry quicker too, instead of waiting for the paint to dry for a while. So, alright, let me paint the molds first, because I'm just messing it up. I just want to sweep it across and try not to, like once I feel like it's dragging, then I wet my brush again so that it goes on smooth. Alright, I'm going to have to add a little bit of red in a bit. So I do a lot of the thin layering. So I'm just going to be putting the colors on top of each other once each layer dries, and that will make it blended. Metallics are a light reflective paint, so you want to make sure you're doing it in a bright, well-lit space, otherwise you won't be able to see the coverage accurately. And so even though it looks like it's on there, when you look at it in a different angle, you'll see that it's not as thick in some areas as it is in others. So that's just like one other thing to keep in mind. How do I decide what color and technique? It just depends on my inspiration. I like nature. Nature's extremely inspiring. And she's the original artist, so if I'm ever looking for combination of colors, you know, I just look at animals and birds and butterflies and things like that to get an idea of what I want. So it just depends on what it is that I'm inspired by to choose the colors. But for this, it's the sunset, so that's going to be my direct inspiration. All right, okay, it's dried a bit. And you can also use the same brush too, if the tones of your colors are similar. It won't look bad. I actually prefer using the same brush when I'm blending, so that the colors blend better with each other. There was more orange on the bottom too. You just want to be quick when you're when you're working with the metallics, because once the paint starts drying, that's when you end up dragging the paint around, and a lot of people have that issue. So it just takes a bit of patience with them. And I'm going to add more of this copper on this leg here. Add a bit more copper up here. And then I'll go back with some orange again. So here's and because I'm painting it on this red, the copper's not showing as brightly as the oranges, but it's definitely enhancing as I layer on more. So, okay. Okay. Yeah, see now it's dry on here, so it just took like a few minutes to let it dry. So you're not going to be like sitting there waiting forever for it to in order to put another layer on there. Oh my gosh, I love this orange so much. It's so pretty. I don't know how it looks on your side, but it's just like a gold tangerine sort of color from what I'm seeing. Let's see, I added the red. Okay, so I'm going to add some red on. This one is called Sashay Red. It's a little bit lighter than the ruby color that I've used before. Barn Red, no, it's not Dixie Belle. It's actually General Finishes. So I love all paint companies for various reasons, and I try to encourage you to use as many different brands as you can, because they all have their own characteristics, and I chose to use the General Finishes milk paint because it's self-leveling and it goes on really smooth, which is important for my metallics because metallics are sheer, and so you're gonna see any texture underneath. So I just wanted it to be smooth finish, and chalk paint is thicker in general. There are some brands that have thinner chalk paint, but in general chalk paint is thicker in texture, and so not really the type of look I was trying to go for on this piece. Which is also why I like to represent a lot of different companies, because I feel like you should spend your money wisely, and each company has just like something that's just amazing. Okay, let's see. Do a bit more copper. So the copper is coming out more. Right. So hopefully you're starting to see the sunset. You can buy Modern Masters in Michael's. So they are retailing Modern Masters in Michael's, and I think there's about 13 different shades that they have. They have silver, gold, rose gold, that one's really pretty, rose gold, pewter, oyster, which is my favorite, opaque white metallic, because it's not like a super bright white. It's got a warmer tone to it, and it's more opaque than the pearl one is. So for the pearl, you would have to paint it on a base of white if that's what you're trying to go for, like a clean white. All right, see how it's kind of dragging? So I'm just gonna leave that alone. The more I try to play with it, the worse it's going to get. So sometimes it's just better to just let it dry out a bit before you continue. And you can feel it when it starts dragging like that. So, which is why I use a damp brush too, because the wetter the paint is, the longer you can play around with it on the surface. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of gold tones, I think. I'll do it slightly different than the one that I originally had. Clumping up right there, I think. Okay. Yeah. So okay, so it's gradually becoming fully covered. So I'm looking at an angle right here, so I can see it appears differently to me than it does to you. Like to you, it's probably looks like it's fully covered on the surface, but from my perspective, I can see the brush strokes and I can see the areas where it is not, it's lighter. So this is why you want to use bright lighting with metallics. It just helps to layer bits. And I love blending with metallics because it's like when you are layering them on top of each other, you can still see a little bit of the bottom layer too, so it's kind of, it's just this like really pretty iridescent look that's just really unique, which is probably why I use metallics for everything now. Do not want it to So I'm just gonna wipe a little bit of the red around those corners. And I'm just dabbing like a tiny, tiny bit. When I layer or blend, that's when I start just dabbing on the paint very lightly and not too thick. So just like a tiny dab here and there. So, okay. Yes, I mean, you know, I totally get brand loyalty, and brands are coming out with products for literally everything for their line so that you can easily buy everything from the same retailer, but I do like to use different ones depending on the finish that I'm going for. Plus, I don't know, I feel like I would just be missing out if I didn't try a little bit of everything. Not saying you are if you use one brand, which is totally your preference, you know, like nothing wrong with loving one brand. And then sometimes it's also about what you can get, what's accessible to you. So maybe, you know, you need something right away and you can't wait for it to be shipped. So you need to use something in the department store. And there's a lot of great options, like Rust-Oleum has a milk paint line now, which I really, really love. Their chalk paint is, I mean, it will get the job done for sure, their chalk paint, which I kind of use more as a base anyways, but I really love the coverage of their milk paint a lot more than the chalk paint, but I still use the chalk paint too. It's just depends on what I'm doing. So like, I like Fusion as well. I love Fusion's paint too. Their paint's like perfect for like a clean finish. Okay, alright, that's dragging. Okay, so I'm trying to not rough it up too much. Yeah, that's still wet. Okay, so you just want to not touch it too much. It's hard to resist going back and just trying to like fix it, but it's better to just leave it alone, and then once it dries up, it'll look different too, so it won't really appear like what you thought it looked like while it was wet. A lot of paints, once they dry, look different than how they look when they're wet, so it can be deceiving. Okay. So I have my picture pulled up on my computer to reference how I did it before. I'm going to add a little bit of this yellow. Wait, no, I'm going to add actually this Tequila Gold. This is like a darker gold color. I don't know if you can see this, but it's like a almost like a brass color actually, but more gold tones, so not as dark as brass, but sorry. It's wet. Okay. Alright, I'm just gonna brush a little bit on the molds right now until that other bit dries. So I'm just dabbing like tiny amounts, not a lot at all. And I've been using the same brush. Do I get paint contaminated in the other ones? Not really, because I'm just dabbing. I'm not like dipping my whole brush into it, so I don't really have an issue with the paint colors getting mixed in too much with the other paint color. So it's just like, okay, add this here. Okay, I don't know how high you can see this. I'll adjust it to do the top when I'm doing that one, but I just wanted to show you the bottom half at least. And yeah, it's still wet. I think more of the orange, more of the gold, or more of the red. I kind of like the red. Do a little bit more red in here around. I'm trying to be as delicate as I can on the surface so that I'm not dragging the paint around, so I'm just lightly brushing over it and not trying to be too rough with it. Metallics are finicky, or I shouldn't say finicky, they're just very very different, so you just have to use a really light touch with them to get the best results when you're blending. Otherwise, they don't really like it if you're too rough in handling. Bit of this gold here. I mean, I'm still going to be gilding these molds later with my fun waxes, but you can still see underneath, so I want to make sure they're painted too. And I'll also be doing some stenciling over the surface because I did a sort of Moroccan stencil to it. Okay. Leave it alone. And sometimes people kind of freak out when I tell them how many layers I use, but really 4, 5 is not using that much paint when you're trying to do it really thin. So I don't even go through one of the small sizes the metallics come in for a piece, because I paint the base, so I don't really need to use as much paint over, so it's like, sorry, gotta muscle. Usually have my husband open these for me. Okay, so this is the rich gold. It's like a lighter gold color. Super pretty, but ooh, yeah, that's pretty. So I'm just kind of, you know, putting it in different areas. So I'm not trying to do like an ombre. I just want it to be like a play with all the different colors together. Let's see, the red looks really good. Trying to see, a bit more red on here, and a little bit down here. Yes, I made my molds. I used resin to make them, and the redesign with Prima, oh, drip, I hate drips. Redesign with Prima molds. I think I used about 6 different kinds to do the trim, and then these emblems in the middle are different ones too. So also with the casting resin, it only takes about 10 minutes for it to harden enough that you can pop it out of the mold and glue it on. Especially if you're doing it on curved surfaces, it's great to do it while it's, oh shoot, okay. It's great to do it while it's pliable for about 5 to 10 minutes after you pop it out. You can also just heat them up to get them to be flexible again too, so it's not like you have to use them right away. I always end up making extras because I try to measure my resin accurately, but sometimes it doesn't. I go over, and so I just save the extra ones for pieces when I need it, and use my heat gun to make them soft again. You can also use hot glue too. I did do that. Not really my favorite. I prefer resin just because it's cleaner, but hot glue works perfectly fine. So okay, it's getting there. Orange isn't really, maybe I should add a bit of this Tequila Gold. little bit too wet. It's okay. All right, let's leave that alone. Is that copper? Oops, that was not a good idea. Okay. Wondering if I should add a bit of pink right now. Maybe I will add a little bit of pink to the top jar. So here's the pink. What is it called? Jeez, it like covered it up because of my paint explosion. I don't know. It's probably something pink. But it's like a bright pink, not really a hot pink, but we do some Esty red here. I think blending's so much fun. Yep, still wet. The copper's taking a little bit to get on well, but that's okay. We have plenty of time. Okay, yeah, so that was just some of the dragging that I was telling you to avoid doing. You just don't want to overplay with it. So part's dry. Okay, do some of this Tequila Gold. It's just that one spot over there that's like not covering up. It's annoying. I think if I put the gold, because it's a bit more opaque, and then put the orange on top, it will be better, or easier at least. So I'm going to do that. I'll put the orange on top of the gold. Okay. Looks pretty. Put a bit more gold up here. And maybe some of the brighter gold on these guys up here. All this detailed stuff. So using a stabbing motion seems to be the easiest way to get into the little detail areas. you dry now? Don't look dry. Nope, not dry. Okay. Let's put a tiny bit of pink right here. A little bit right here too. I think the bottom needs a bit of red. A little bit of the red up here. I don't think I painted this enough. Just going to put some of this orange on the trim on the side here. Yikes, yeah. Copper is not being my friend right now. Okay. I think some orange down here too. There. And you can just, you know, make your own color designs. Alright, I have to wait for this copper to dry because it's taking a little bit longer for some reason to dry, and you don't want to mess with it. See, pink. This is drying a lot more quickly, but I don't know. I just do whatever it decides to do. Okay, so I'm not going to mess with the copper right now. I'm going to have to come back to that one when it fully sets. But I think you can kind of get an idea on the top here what I'm talking about for the colors and stuff with the blending, and then doing it very thinly on there. Ferrari of metallics. I mean, DIY colors did you get? I did not use DIY paints for this one. I used the base is General Finishes Barn Red, and these are all Modern Masters metallics. But I do like DIY paint. I mean, I like their colors. They're fun. You can use any type of paint you want, you know? You can use Dixie Belle, you can use Fusion, you can use General Finishes, Rust-Oleum, whatever you like, and get similar results. Except you'd probably have to use the Modern Masters paint because they're the only ones that have these colors right now, but I know companies are coming out with their own metallics too. So, all right. I think I probably bored you long enough. So I'm just gonna let this dry, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint the top. I'm not going to make you watch me do that. And so for the next video, I'll be doing the stenciling on the front that I did with the original wardrobe. So I used the patchwork in Casablanca. I think I used Casablanca. This Casablanca stick and style, and I used patchwork, so I'm going to use the stick and style up here and here, and then I'm going to do the patchwork on the sides right here with using decor waxes, so even more color on the sides like that. And then I'll be gilding the molds with waxes too, so it's just going to be kind of like a lot of the same tone of colors, but so alright, so that's it. And if you have any questions, go ahead and comment and let me know. You can buy these paints in Michaels. So Michaels carries Modern Masters now. I believe they have 13 shades of their colors. So you can check on your Michaels online too and see if they carry it. And but of course Amazon carries Modern Masters as well. So if you can't find the shade you want at Michaels, Amazon probably has it. So alright, so that's it. This is how to get the sunset looking blending thing.